This is the ROG Kithara, and it is a perfect example of how ASUS sets itself apart when it comes to quality and making their products feel special. It's a wired gaming headset using a 100mm hi-fi man planar magnetic drivers with an open back design, which places it in a rather odd position compared to the competition, but we'll get into that later in the video. For now, let's see what we get in the box. You're greeted with a thank you letter and a sound signature certificate, which shows you how the headset performs across different frequencies. The flat line shows how it's tuned for clarity and positioning rather than just being bass heavy. Next is a quick guide that showcases the included cables, the audio plugs, and how to connect them to the headset, along with how to replace the ear pads. Then we'll find the 3 audio plugs and the 3.5mm to USB-C converter. Under that we have the cables, with the primary one being the standard 3.5mm cable with the microphone attached to the right plug, and a secondary cable, which I assume is the higher quality one. This is the cable you want to use if you want to utilize the 3 audio plugs I showed earlier. Do note though that this one does not include a mic, which is actually a good thing in my opinion. And finally we have the headset itself, which is much larger and lighter than I had expected, but we'll come back to it later. Underneath the box, you'll also find a pair of additional ear pads. These are made of a fabric type material instead of the leathery ones that are pre-installed, and I believe they offer less audio isolation overall. The connection process is very simple. Both the cables and the ear pads are labeled left and right, and you just plug each side accordingly. The headset is made almost entirely out of metal and feels extremely premium, with subtle ROG branding in a brushed metal finish. The ear cups feel fantastic as well, and adjusting the height of the headband is easy, with notches to help you match each side equally. Putting it on, you can instantly feel the physical size since it covers big portions from the side of your head, but it doesn't feel heavy at all, and the weight distribution is very good. I would say the clamping force is on the lower end, and in my experience, the adjustable headband would change position very easily, which is a bit problematic. As a matter of fact, it just did it. Now, this could be by design, because the best way to get the size right is to close the headband all the way and just wear the headset and start pulling down until you find the correct position that covers your ears entirely. It automatically adjusts itself until it fits comfortably. However, with that being said, this could lead to having one side lower than the other, so I would have preferred a tighter mechanism that lets me just adjust it once and keep it there. Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example. You can see clearly that the right side is adjusted much higher than the left one. So, going back to the point that I made earlier about how the Kithara sits in a bit of an odd position compared to the competitors. Most high-end gaming headphones today are wireless and closed back, which makes sense. I mean, you don't want to be tied to a cable, you want to be free to move around, especially if you're gaming. And you usually want the isolation from external noises like your PC, as well as your keyboard and mouse clicks, which can get annoying over long sessions. But before I dig any deeper, let's do a quick mic check. Alright, so this is a quick sample of the mic, and the sound quality is really good here, with compression kept to a minimum. However, it is on the quieter end and not as loud as I would have liked it to be. And here goes the headband adjusting itself again. And for this part, I'm going to be typing on the keyboard while also speaking into the mic to see how well it performs when it comes to separating my sound from external noises. However, from my initial testing, it sounded pretty good. Now, this is my first time using open back headphones, and it was a very interesting experience to say the least. You see, my daily drivers are the Razer Kraken V3 Pro, and before that it was the Inari Ultimate. And what these two headsets share is the HyperSense feature, which uses a separate driver to create vibrations on lower frequencies, mimicking heavy bass. And honestly, that's almost impossible to match using just the main audio driver. Now, when I tried the Kithara for the first time, I was pleasantly surprised. The open back nature is completely different from a closed back headset, even before you start playing anything. So I started with some music, and the first thing that stood out to me was the clarity. Mid-tones and vocals sound very bright and crisp. I started noticing instruments and lighter details that I never picked up on before. It's a very unique experience if you're not used to this type of sound signature, like I was. It's very difficult to describe it, but if I had to put it in words, I would say it's similar to how things sound after you blow your nose and your ears open up. It's like a full reset to your hearing. Even the bass sounds different. It is definitely not as strong or heavy as my Razer, but it is cleaner. Somehow feels even better. And what that tells you is pretty much where the Kithara's tuning stands. It's balanced in a very impressive way. However, there is a problem. You see, plugging it in using the 3.5mm jack will not give you very good volume levels, which I had expected. Using the USB-C converter improves things in a very noticeable way, but it's still not enough. Ideally, you want a proper audio setup with a decent amp to really drive these drivers to their full potential. As a matter of fact, I would go as far as saying that I think the amp is necessary because these things do not get nearly as loud as other headsets, especially ones in this price range. Now moving on to gaming on the Kithara, and this is where things can get a bit questionable. You see, all the positive points that I had mentioned earlier still apply here. In a shooter, for example, you benefit a lot from the cleaner audio, especially when it comes to sounds like footsteps or more subtle things that are happening in the background. But then you also hear everything around you because of the open back design, for example your keyboard, your mouse clicks, and any background noise in your room. And that's something you need to be aware of. Another issue is the audio leakage. If you're using an external mic like I am, you probably need to move to push to talk, otherwise your mic will pick up literally everything that you're hearing. Of course, that is not that big of a problem and there are many ways to get around it, but it's something that I had to point out. Now, AAA games on the other hand are where this headset really starts to make sense. Large open world games benefit a lot from the open back design and the sound signature that you're getting here, especially if you're playing on a controller and your setup isn't that loud. Watching movies or Netflix is another area where this headset really shines. The overall audio experience is just more immersive and detailed compared to your traditional closed back design headphones. So if I had to wrap it up, I'd say that the Kithara is like owning a supercar. It's an amazing experience when you use it properly, but daily driving it can come with compromises. I respect ASUS for releasing a product like the Kithara and setting themselves apart from the rest. If you know what you're getting into, then you'll absolutely fall in love with this headset. It's an absolute game changer. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and let me know your thoughts on open back versus closed back headphones down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.